Hi, everybody. As regular viewers of my channel know, not only do I do music videos, but sometimes movie videos. I'm a big movie fan, and once in a while, I like to stick one on here. Hope it doesn't detract from the VC, but it's one of my interests and a longtime hobby of mine. Anyway, always loved music, movies, and today I'm going to do something that combines the two, and that would be music documentaries and, of course, concert videos. So, first, I'm going to start with the concert videos. I'm going to pick 10 of each and run through them really quick. I don't want to make this too unbearably long. So, first, this is a one that I picked up. It's from 1964. It's called the Tammy Show. Tammy stands for Teenage Awards Music International, and this was in August of '64. There was a tour of all the young performers at the time. These are people in their prime, big names like the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry, Marvin Gaye, Jerry and the Pacemakers, which were huge, and Leslie Gore, Jan and Dean, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Supremes, the Rolling Stones, James Brown, all headliners at the time, and they all were sort of barnstorming, hitting cities at the time, and they filmed it, and it was shown in the theaters later that year, and then did not show up on video for 40 years later, I guess, is when I picked this up. But it's really good. It's pretty good condition, and you can see some of the great artists of the mid '60s, in particular, some of the Motown people, soul artists. The Stones, of course, very young here, 64, about 6 months after the Beatles broke through, and some of the British invasion people are here too. The Tammy Show, 1964. Definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. Next up, this is called Jacob's Dad. Don't ask me why it's called Jacob's Dad. I don't know. But it is, I think it's a bootleg uh, concert video. And it's for the Bridge School in California, which was a pet project of Neil Young and his wife Peggy, who had a son with cerebral palsy, and they were raising money so the kid could have a suitable school. Millions of dollars went into this, and it was their thing to raise money, and all their friends came out. So in concert, you have Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, of course, Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, and Don Henley was part of this. Am I missing anybody? Robin Williams did a little comedy act. So it was good. It was I don't think many people know about it. 1986. So it's sort of, I think, was right around when David Crosby was getting out of jail. He's all bloated up and not at his best, but the music's good. It's not in the greatest condition because I think it's a bootleg, but I wanted to show it anyway for a good cause. Neil Young's son. So there we go. Next up, this is a concert video from the Eagles. This is their farewell tour #1, which is supposed to be funny because they knew they weren't really breaking up. Melbourne, Australia. It is, how many songs we got here? Like 30 songs. This is shot in the mid 2000s, before Glenn Frey unfortunately passed away. So this is outstanding. They're so precise in their musicianship and the arrangements. Very close. It's like listening to an Eagles album if you're into that, which I'm a fan. Not only do you get the Eagles songs as a group, you get some of Henley's solo, Joe Walsh solo, and Glenn Frey, some of his solo work as well. Real good. Eagles farewell tour #1 from Melbourne, Australia. Next, we've got U2 live at Red Rocks. This was in 1983 in the Red Rocks, the outdoor amphitheater in Denver, Colorado. A really cool place to see a concert, I would imagine. I've never had the pleasure, but U2 were in their early 20s here. They'd been in the States a couple years. I remember seeing this on TV when I was in my 20s, I guess. And I thought this was a band on the way up, and obviously they broke through eventually. They were awesome in this concert. I remember the steam coming off of the rocks and out of the breath of Bono when he's singing. It seemed like it was cold. They had these torches for lights around these beautiful rocks. It's enclosed amphitheater out in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains. Cool video, outstanding. If you haven't seen it, check it out for sure. Next, we've got Bruce Springsteen live in New York City. This was in 2001, I believe. Yeah, this was an awesome show. He still had his full E Street Band. At that time, they were all still alive, Clarence and Danny Federici, who have passed since. And they're in full gear, even though they were probably 50 years old at the time. Still, they put on a hell of a show. 2.5 hours worth at least. All the classics are here all the way through. Outstanding performance. Definitely love that. Multiple viewing, of course. Next, we've got Neil Young, the classic Rust Never Sleeps. This was from 1978 with his Crazy Horse Band. This is one of the best concert videos ever put on film. All the outstanding classics that you would know from Neil Young are here. Sugar Mountain, I Am a Child, Comes a Time, After the Gold Rush, on and on, The Loner, Needle and the Damage Done, Cinnamon Girl, of course, Like a Hurricane, Tonight's the Night, Hey, Hey, My. Great stuff. Neil Young. Definitely one to see. Next, we've got Simon and Garfunkel from live from Central Park. This was a phenomenal event at the time, and I think it was 81. These guys have been estranged for a number of years. They got talked into doing one big show for free in Central Park in New York City. The rumor was it was 500,000 people. It was an HBO event. A lot of buzz, and well worth it. The guys were really sounding good. They had a great set list. Awesome concert. One of the all-time greats. And we've got the concert for George. This is George Harrison. This is from 2002. This is on the 1-year anniversary of his death. Of course, he died in 2001. And you got some of his friends here, like his living Beatle mates, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr appear here. His Traveling Wilbury Boys. You got Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And, of course, Jeff Lynne. Eric Clapton is the one that really got behind this, along with George's son, Danny Harrison. Excellent concert. Everybody takes turns doing all George's songs. So it's, if you're a Harrison fan, it's a good way to pay tribute to George Harrison. Outstanding. And the last concert video I have is a big one. It's Live Aid from 1985. This was a monstrosity of an event. It was like the Woodstock of the 80s or MTV generation. Everybody stopped what they were doing and either watched it or tuned in. It was all day on MTV and then by coast, not by coastal, what's the word I'm looking for? 2 continents. They had a concert in Wembley, England, and of course one in Philadelphia at JFK Stadium. So it was a marathon, all-time great. Listen to some of these artists that appeared. This is like the who's who of that era. Bob Dylan, David Bowie, Mick Jagger, U2, Queen, McCartney, Madonna, Elton John, The Who, Eric Clapton, Neil Young, The Beach Boys, Dire Straits, Tina Turner, Sting, Bryan Adams, Joan Baez, Keith Richards, The Pretenders, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, George Michael, Hall & Oates, INXS, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Phil Collins, who played both shows. He took the Concorde over and played drums on both sets. The Cars are here. Duran Duran, Simple Minds, the Boomtown Rats, George Thorogood and the Delaware Destroyers, Teddy Pendergrass, Judas Priest, Kenny Loggins, Eddie Kendricks, David Ruffin, just REO Speedwagon. Unbelievable amount of talent in one day. I think it went on for, it seemed like 12 hours. It was massive. So Live Aid, I'm glad they preserved it and we're able to buy it and see it and relive those moments. So now I'm going to do the documentaries. Next, we're going to do the documentaries. I'm going to start off with Linda Ronstadt, which came out a few years ago. It's called Sound of My Voice. I always was a big fan of Linda Ronstadt. Grew up listening to her music. Unfortunately, now she's got Parkinson's disease and she shut down her career. But what an artist she was. Even though she didn't write her own songs, she had the voice. She covered so many of the songwriters of that time in the 70s and into the 80s. And she changed styles a bit. She went into the Mexican music, and she did a Broadway play, The Pirates of Penzance. And she did some standards with Nelson Riddle. But the heart of her career is as a folk rock or country pop, whatever you want to call her. She was all over the radio in the early to mid 70s, especially. She really is almost responsible for the Eagles band forming, because Glenn Fry and Don Henley were in her band along with Bernie Ledden. They were her backup musicians. They went out on their own with her blessing and went from there. But this is about her. It's a really good documentary. If you're a fan, starting out with, of course, the Stone Ponies in 1967, I believe, and finding her way to stardom from there. Essential to the West Coast sound of the 70s. Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice. Next, we've got David Crosby, Remember My Name. Now, this is one interesting character, whether you like him or not. He's quite divisive. He's been in a number of bands, and he either is a troublemaker or misunderstood. This documentary gets into all of that stuff, talks to his ex-bandmates. He's sort of alienated quite a few people over the years. But another guy that's essential to the Laurel Canyon area and the West Coast sound, the folk rock scene. He's seen it all. And, whether it be his work with the Byrds and, of course, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, and his own trials and tribulations with drugs, addiction, it's all here. This is a looking back at his mistakes and screw-ups and regrets, and although I don't think he ever really apologizes for anything. He's one of them guys. But I like the documentary. I'm not the biggest Crosby fan, but I like that era of music. So there's one to think about. Next, you've got Monterey Pop. This is the document of the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival, which really kicked off the Summer of Love that year. And it was breakout performances from people like The Who, where they're banging the crap out of their machines at the end and caused a sensation. Jimi Hendrix lighting his guitar on fire. Janis Joplin, Otis Redding was huge here. He really didn't live much longer after this, but he made an impression on a lot of people. Other people that were here were Simon and Garfunkel, the Mamas and Papas, the Byrds, and, of course, Ravi Shankar, who seems to turn up everywhere. Monterey Pop, directed by D.A. Pennebaker, who did the famous Bob Dylan documentary, Don't Look Back, which I don't have here. Next up, Beatles, 8 Days a Week. This is the touring years. This is from like 62, 3 over in Hamburg until they made it to the States, up and through 1966 when they quit touring. Doesn't really go beyond that. This is about the hustle bustle, the stardom, Beatlemania, Ron Howard, the famous director. This is his project. I'm assuming he grew up a huge Beatle fan. He's the right age for it. And this takes a look at them. It's mostly black and white clips, the majority of it, which I have no problem with. That's what we remember seeing when they came over. If you're a Beatle fan, you probably already know about it, but here it is. The Beatles, 8 Days a Week, the touring years. Next up, we've got Once We're Brothers, Robbie Robertson and the band. This is one I really, really liked because I learned so much that I didn't know. I like the band, of course, from their Last Waltz days, but this is a guy who, again, is misunderstood, alienated. He had a falling out with pretty much all the members of the band. This really delves into his Indian roots, Native American roots, uh, which is interesting to watch him talk about uh, his upbringing and so forth. He was Canadian, and as were most of the band members except for Levon Helm, who was from the South. And I didn't realize they had the heroin problem that they did in the band. It was shocking to learn that. I thought they were pot smokers, but they were hardcore drug addicts for the most part, some of them. And it really fractured the band and stunted their growth, and they stopped putting out really good material. The first two albums are legendary: Music, Big Pink, and of course the band, the brown covered album, self-titled. After that, they put out, I think, 4 more albums. Nothing ever reached the level that those first two did. So this is a really good documentary. I liked it a lot. Next, we've got U2, Rattle and Hum, from, I believe, 88-ish. This is the U2 guys touring the United States, searching for the roots of music that they love. They do a duet with B.B. King. They go to Harlem with a choir, and all that shows up on the album. A great band, and this is another way to look at them, documentary style. And they do a little clip back and forth between the concert footage and them off stage interviews and so forth. Good stuff from U2. Then we've got the history of the Eagles. This was, they were down to a 4-man band. They kicked Don Felder out by this time, and this is a really solid documentary. Who directed this? Allison Eastwood. I guess that's Clint's daughter. Anyway, this is good. This is right up my alley, too. This is a band that I like. I feel like I'm on an island because so many people have turned on the Eagles over the years. They're not cool enough. They're stuck on themselves, whatever they want to say about them. But they put out 6 great albums in the 1970s, and I stand by them. So let's go with that. Next up is Tom Petty, and this is called Running Down a Dream. One of my favorites, of course, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. What a documentary this is. This is a 4-disc package. 2 discs. Peter Bogdanovich, the great director of The Last Picture Show, directed this. And the first 2 discs, disc 1 and 2, are the documentary itself. Disc 3 is a 30th anniversary concert in the Heartbreakers' hometown of Gainesville, Florida. And the 4th disc is bonus soundtrack CD, so you get music to listen to as well. Tom Petty, miss him dearly. I was a huge fan, still am a huge fan, but I wish he would have continued because he was still making really good music, even up until the time of his death. In my opinion, he really was. The last album he put out was fantastic. His last solo album, anyway. Some of the albums he did, like Mojo and the other album that it's not popping in my head right now, were not my cup of tea. But for the most part, he was Can't Mess With Me. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Running Down a Dream. And last, we got 2 more, excuse me. We've got The Last Waltz from 1976. This is a monster of a concert, one of the best ever put on film, directed by Martin Scorsese, and another who's who of 70s classic rock folk. You've got Van Morrison, Eric Clapton, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan. It goes on from there. Neil Diamond, if you're into that scene, Emmylou Harris, the Staple Singers, Muddy Waters. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Neil Young. Everybody's here. All their friends, different styles of music. They can play with anybody, and they prove that on stage. That was, I think, the part of the reason they wanted to do the one last show after 15, 16 years on the road. They'd had it. Again, they were fractured at that point. I love the interviews. Really good insight into their camaraderie and kibitzing back and forth and stories of the road. They met Jack Ruby at one time. Later find out that he, of course, shot Oswald. There's some really good anecdotes and sidetracked stories here. So this is an all-time great movie. I'm not one that really likes live albums, but I had to buy this one. It's definitely one of my favorites. I'm more visually oriented when it comes to concerts, so I don't really buy albums that are live. But if I can get them on video and I can see the artists and hear them and see how they were playing, and I just take all that in, and it works for me as an experience. So the last and certainly not least, Woodstock 1969 festival, 3 days of fun, love, and peace, love, and understanding, whatever you want to say. Great stuff. This is a landmark for hippies and baby boomers. Great. It's wonderful they documented this. It really is, because a once-in-a-lifetime concert. And, of course, everybody is here again. You got Hendrix with his great performance, Santana, Joe Cocker, Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, Richie Havens. It goes on and on. The Who, Sly and the Family Stone. Just too many to name. CCR. Great. And not only is it a great concert film or documentary, just what they capture with interviewing the different hippies in the crowd and the townspeople of them coming in before and what they expect and how they thought it was going to be a complete debacle, and really it was peaceful for the most part. So this is definitely the all-time documentary for me, and I think a lot of other people as well. Anyway, that caps it. Thanks a lot for watching, and take care. Bye.